Hey guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to make beef short ribs in the Masterbuilt electric smoker. I've got these beef short ribs here and I'm going to show you how to butcher them, how to brine them, how to apply a rub to them, and how to cook them low and slow on the Masterbuilt electric so you get tender, delicious, fall off the bone short ribs that's going to please everybody at your next barbecue cookout. So stay tuned, let's get to the video. Okay, first things first, they come in a package here, so we're gonna have to split this open. All right, so these beef short ribs look great. As you can see here on the side profile, there's a lot of intramuscular fat in here. That's gonna provide a lot of flavor. It's a really similar cut to brisket, actually. It's got a lot of fat inside it, and that is all gonna render and it's gonna taste awesome. So we've got about 4 ribs here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut them in what's called an English cut. Right now, these ribs are a little bit too long for my taste. You could do what's called a dinosaur cut and just cook this all as one slab, and then you'd have these big long bones. What I like to do is cut them down the middle here and get an English cut. You can also get your butcher to cut it that way as well. So with short ribs, they're different than pork ribs because, as you can see, all of the meat is on top of the rib. So we've got a rib going lengthways down the center of the cut, and then we've got all this thick meat on top of it. So it's a little bit different than cooking pork ribs because you've got a ton of meat here, and that's a lot of meat to cook. On the other side, you can see the meat sort of tapers down, so there's less meat on this side than the other side. So you might get some cuts that are a little bit different in size. So what we're gonna do now is we're going to cut off some of this fat. We don't need all this fat on top of the short rib because there's so much intramuscular fat. So we're gonna carve some of this off. And I'm slicing it away from me so I don't cut myself. I'm gonna save this fat for making sausage, if I can. It's a little bit hard, but it's not as hard as you get on a brisket, for example. All right, so this is all trimmed up. There was a lot more fat than I expected, but that's okay. I think we can get 2 good cuts out of this. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to cut it perpendicular to the bone about halfway through. And I'll just use a saw to do this. If you have a meat bandsaw at home, that's even better. Or if you can get your butcher to do it, that's even better. But I'm just gonna cut this with the saw here. Now we're gonna brine the ribs for about 3 hours in a brine solution, which you can find in the description section below. Okay, these beef short ribs have been brining for about 3 hours, so we're going to take them out of the brine solution. And now we're gonna pat them dry with some paper towel, just to get rid of that excess moisture. All right, there we go. Now I'm gonna leave the membrane on. It just helps keep all the meat together and the ribs together as you cook it. Otherwise the bones can fall out, and then you wouldn't have beef short ribs anymore. You just basically have brisket meat. So I'm gonna keep that membrane on just to hold everything together. Now what I'm gonna do is apply a rub. I made up just a really basic rub. This rub recipe is in the description section below this video, and then I put it in a nice shaker bottle. This rub is pretty salty, savory. It's good for beef. It's got some paprika, some chili powder, some garlic, some salt and pepper. Just really basic. I don't want to put any sugar on this because it just doesn't really go well with the flavor of the beef short rib. So I'm going to apply that now with this shaker bottle, and we'll just get it all evenly coated. Okay, now the rub is applied, so now I'm going to throw these onto the Masterbuilt electric smoker. For this cook, I'm going to use hickory chips in the Masterbuilt, but you can also use cherry, they'd go well, and you can do also a blend of hickory and cherry. When you put the short ribs into the smoker, make sure you put it in the lower middle rack. Don't put it in the rack just above the heat source because that's gonna be too hot. It's gonna cook the ribs unevenly. Then we're gonna set it to 250 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're going to set it for 3 hours, at which point we'll take it out and wrap it. After 3 hours, we'll take the ribs out of the Masterbuilt electric and we will wrap them in tin foil with a little bit of beef stock in them just to provide some extra moisture and some steam to really cook them and get them nice and tender. And after they are wrapped, we'll put them back in the Masterbuilt electric smoker for about 2 to 3 hours.
or until the internal temperature gets to around 190 to 200 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, these ribs have been smoking for about 3 hours now, and they're up to an internal temperature of about 195 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm going to take them out of the Masterbuilt electric smoker, and I'm going to let them rest by putting them into a styrofoam cooler. You can use any cooler you want. The important thing is that you put it on the bottom and make sure you have something to soak up any grease that might drip out of there. And as you can see, I'm just checking the final temperature with my therm pen. It's 204 Fahrenheit, which is great. That means it's going to be nice and juicy. And I'm just going to put some material on top of it just to take up the extra air in the cooler. In this case, I had some extra bubble wrap lying around, but you can also use a couple towels if that's easier.
All right, these short ribs have come out of the Masterbuilt electric smoker. We've let them rest for a while, and now we're going to open them up and see what we got. Oh, all right. So as you can see, the meat from the short ribs has pulled back a lot on the bone. It's exposed the bone here, and that's pretty typical. One bone has actually started to drift out this way, which is interesting. So we're gonna pick this up here, and we'll try not to let it fall apart. All right. That is juicy. Wow. Okay, now we are going to cut into it. So we'll cut this right here, and I'll cut one of these guys off. All right, so we'll take a look at the profile here. As you can see, there is no smoke ring because we cooked this in the Masterbuilt electric. Typically, you won't get a smoke ring in the Masterbuilt electric smoker, but you can totally see how juicy it is, and we'll just squeeze it there for you. Look at that. It looks delicious. We got a pretty nice bark on the outside. It's coming apart a lot, and you can see that it's not totally disintegrating. It's still got some bite to it. Let's take a look at this other one. So this one looks really good as well, and we'll just squeeze that. And you can see all the juices coming out of it, which is great. Okay, now we'll give it a taste. All right. Oh, this looks good. Oh man. That's so good. I really like how it has a lot of bite to it still. It's not disintegrating off the bone. It's really nice and tender, but it still has that nice mouthfeel, and your teeth can still get into something. Oh man. All right guys, I hope you liked this video, and I hope you learned how to cook beef short ribs on the Masterbuilt electric smoker. I really recommend trying it yourself. If you like this video, consider subscribing by hitting the subscribe button below and also liking the video. Thanks a lot guys. As always, I appreciate it. See you on the trails.